Did you ever wonder why you do not feel emotion like everyone else and how it's affecting you? Maybe it's because of your trauma? Let's see in this video how trauma affects your emotions. Salut, I'm Valérie and I overcame my complex PTSD. But let me tell you something. It was a long run. But it was a good journey. And through that journey, I had multiple emotions, from having no emotion to too much emotion to then being able to regulate my emotion. It all started when I was young. Because I was too young when my trauma happened, I didn't know how to react. So I learned to dissociate myself from my emotion. What does that mean? That means that the emotion was so hard that I was cutting myself from feeling it. At the beginning, it was the only things I know how to do because I was so young. But at one point, it became an habit. And then that habit grew and grew and grew and grew, and I arrived at a point where I was feeling nothing. I was not feeling happiness, I was not feeling sadness, I was not feeling anger. So I was talking about my trauma like if I was completely dissociated with it. Like, it is my trauma. But what does it mean? What do I feel? I didn't know. And then I started to go in therapy. And that journey, I was still cutting from my emotion, even if the therapist was asking me questions. Up to one day, that day when my husband joined the military and I had to face myself to declutter our house. Why that day? Because I sat and I cried because I saw the mountain, the wall of stuff that we had and that I need to go through in 3 months. How will I be able to do that? I didn't know. And I start touching the object. And every object that touched was bringing a memory back, or was bringing me, oh, it's somebody who gave it to me, or it was some money we spent on it, or it was the status of having those objects in my life means that we are somebody. We are somebody, we are having a status, we are higher rank, if we can say, in the society. Because I was feeling so bad inside. I didn't want people to see that I was feeling bad. So let's say what to do with your emotion. So in that journey, when I start touching, when I start decluttering, I start understanding that I have some emotion. And then I was going back to my therapy and was finally able to answer these questions with deeper emotion. I was finally able to get in touch with my emotion. But guess what? The emotion then started growing and growing and growing and growing and growing at a point that I was not able to manage them anymore. So I passed from having no emotion, being dissociating, to having too much emotion, crying for anything, yelling and being angry, and laughing at the point that I lost my breath. I was in the total opposite. So my emotions were not regulated. It was dysregulation of my emotion. And I didn't know how to manage it. That was kind of new for me. What do I feel? What is that? And it was from 15 minutes after another emotion, 15 minutes another emotion. It was a roller coaster of emotion. But guess what? I take time to soothe myself, to be able to understand that after about 20 minutes of an emotion, that emotion go lower and you're able to understand what just happened. And from emotion to emotion, when you take those coping strategy, then you became able to manage your emotion better. So what are those coping strategies? The first one is grounding yourself. how do you ground yourself? There are different techniques. One that I used at that time was to take a ice cube and hold it in my hand. So I had no choice than focus on that ice cube because it was melting, it was darn cold, and I was freezing. So by doing that, the big emotion that I have start slowing down because my focus was on something else. Later on, I learned to ground myself differently. I learned to use a crystal or a rock, for example, or another object that I hold in my hand and that helped me ground myself and calm myself and feel better and understand what just happened instead of taking action right away when the emotion is really high. And the other coping strategy is, you know what? My pets. Yeah, zootherapy is pretty efficient. So when I feel a lot of emotion, and I still use it today, my pet is often, my dog Zephyr, is often coming to me. He feels that I have something going on, and he comes to see me to kind of telling me it's okay. And I take him in my arm and I'm petting him. And you know what? That suits myself. And I become more in harmony. And then I'm able to feel joy again. And I'm able to start doing the other things that I was trying to do, like decluttering or a chores in the house or a discussion with someone without having those emotions right in the top because of those coping strategy. Because I had pet my dog, then I'm able to calm down and continue to live. So what I told you today is, yes, trauma can affect your emotion. It can go from dissociation to having your emotion in the top roof. But by decluttering, if you are somewhere on that journey between dissociation and too much emotion, decluttering will help you get in touch with your emotion progressively. And you can then use coping strategy to be sure that you are able to manage what's going on. Not to stop the emotion, just to understand it and leave it in a proper way. So on that, I'll tell you, remember, you create the life you want. See you in the next video.